Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can convert this paper sketch into this design. So here we have some little prototype in here, and you can actually scroll between these items. You can close this here and open this, and as well as close this particular section if you don't want that. We can also hide balance here, and then you can display the balance here. For the bonus page, we actually created a flash screen here that will just, introduce the user, then slide into the main application. So for this tutorial, we're going to be using the Figma UI3. If you have not been invited to test that, I'll be linking a video in the description below to show you how you can actually pull and update to the new Figma UI3 in less than 2 minutes so that you can follow along with this tutorial. If you're new to my channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button. It actually helps the channel to grow. The resources used for this video will also be made available in the description below. Without taking much of your time, let's jump into it. Once you duplicated the files in the description below, you're going to get this environment here. And here we've already set some of the colors that we're going to be using here, and we also have the icons and some resources here. So quickly, let's pick a frame for this design. So I'm going to be using the iPhone 14 and 15 Pro. So now once we select this, let's just add some layout grids to this. So I'm going to zoom in. So here we're going to use the layout grid here and click on the settings icon here. Then we're going to change that to columns. Now I'm going to set this to 4. And for the margins, we can use 16. So let's add rulers to this design so that we can hide the grid. To do that, click on the Figma icon here, go to view and make sure that the ruler is checked. So if it is checked, you can just leave this and we can use this section of our app. That's the extreme here, drag this and then just drop the ruler here. I'm going to do that again for this other section. So now I'm going to zoom in to make sure that this is properly aligned here. And we're going to do the same thing for this. Drag this and then make sure that this is properly aligned here. So for this, I think I will just align this to this section here. Let me just align this here so that we don't get distracted. So let's hide this, our columns. So I'm going to scroll down, make sure you're selecting this and click on this icon here to hide those columns. So one good thing about the UI3 is that I'm going to click on assets here. It comes with some built-in assets that we can use. So yours might not be aligned like this. So, but if you search for status here, and we're going to have options here for the status bar. So I'm using the iPhone 14. So you see we have option for iOS and then the iPhone. So I'm going to drag this and drop this here. So this is the reason why we picked the iPhone 14 and 15 Pro, because the resources here actually fit into this properly. So let's align this to the top and then make sure it's at the center. So these have some variations that you can actually use when you click this icon here. You see we can have the color dark, but right now we're not using dark. We're actually using light. The next thing is to bring our image here. We want this image to be side by side with this design here so that we can actually follow this. So now let's create this head section of our app. To do that, I'm going to select the frame here and press shift, then drag this. So this, I'm going to make sure that it's 40 by 40 for this. And then we can add a border radius for this. I'll make this 20, which is half of 40. Let's zoom in here so that we can see this properly. The next thing is to add a stroke around this item here. So quickly, I'm just going to change the color of this. And before we continue, I have this black background here. I want to just adjust that background to something like this so that we don't struggle to see. So now we have this. I'll just bring this. Okay, maintain this since we're copying the design from this section. Now let's increase this to 1.5. That's the thickness of this border. So once we have this, we're going to add a text which is AD. I'm going to press T and then add AD. using capital letters. So we can change the font of this. Here I want to change the size of this to 14. And then for the font weight here, I'm going to use semi-bold for this. So we can as well change the color of this. So scroll down to where you have the fill, use this dot here, and then select the primary color here. So now that we have this, we can now align this to the center of our frame. So we can start by adding our text. So here, I'm going to press letter T for the text and add welcome. So this, I'm going to set the size of this to 10, and then the font weight is going to be light. You notice I'm not using any other font family here. We're sticking to Inter. So for this, it has the line height. The line height looks big, so let's reduce the line height here. I'll change that to auto. And let's press T again on our keyboard, and let's add another text, which is add Aaron Dio. So now that we have this, I'm going to change the font weight of this here. So here I'm going to make this 12, and here I will make this semi-bold here. So we already have the colors set, so I'm going to select this and then this. So from the fill here, they are having the same fill, so I'm going to select this and use a black color. But this, okay, I think I don't want to use the black for this. We can use the gray color for the welcome. These two items, we want to group them. So I'll click on the first item, hold shift, and then select the second item here. Press shift A to put them in an auto layout. Now I'm going to select this item, or you can just highlight these two items. Press shift A, and we can adjust the spacing between them to 8. So for this item here, I also want to change the color of the content here. This is white. So if I should do this, I'll select the fill here. Once you select that, and we can change the color to our primary soft, and we have this. Now we want to create this other section because we are done with this part here. So let's quickly create this other section. I'm going to use frame. So press F on your keyboard and drag this. Now I'm going to set this weight to 90. And then the height here, we can set that to 32. So we can now change this to 16. That's half of 32. And we have this design here. So now that we have this, I'm going to add the flag of the currency we are using here. So now click on this resources file here. Now go to plugins and resources. Let's search for flags. Once this is loaded, let's click on this result and wait for that to load. Once this is loaded, let's search for US. Now I'm just going to select this. No need to drag, just select. It's going to appear here. Let me drag that out. Let me just point to this section here and then select this. So now that we have this, we need to fit this inside this container, but this is a vector image. So if I should hold shift and try to adjust this, it gets to a point everything shrinks. So I'm going to select this and then hold command shift C. On Windows is control shift C. It's going to copy that as an image, so I can select this and then paste this here. So once we have this, we can now adjust the size of this to 28. So this is locked already, 28. So we have this, so this can easily fit into this. So, but don't forget, we just need to delete this because we don't need that again. So now select this, and we need to unlock this and change the height to 22 because the height of the parent is 32. So we just also want to make this even. So let's add a corner radius for this. If you add 11, this is going to be fine here. So let's add a text inside this. I'll press T on my keyboard, and we can use USD here for this. Then we can adjust the color of this USD. I'll set that to dark, and the font size of this is going to be 14, and we are sticking to let's change this to medium. We need to add a drop down here to indicate that you can actually select other currencies. So to do that, we have some icons here. So I want to convert everything here into a component. To actually do this, I'm just going to click here, somewhere inside here, try to highlight everything at once. Then we can use the three dots here. Then we can use create multiple components. So when you do this, it's going to create multiple components for us. So now we can come back to this our design here, and I'm going to close this. So once we do that, you see we have our local components here. So I'm going to select our local component. Let's scroll down and let's drag this and drop this somewhere here. So we have our icon here. Now lock this icon and let's reduce the size to 18. So we can as well change the colors, but this time we're not using the fill, we're using the selection color. So I'm going to change this to dark to match this color here. So we're going to select these three items, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Let's make sure that the spacing between them is 2 each. So now that we have this, we can align them towards the center of the components, and we have our design. So I'm just going to, no need to rename this since it's just one item. We just need to select item 1 and item 2, Shift A. Here, put them in an auto layout. Make sure that this is centered to this. Now we can just double click here and change this to header. So once this has been changed, we can just convert this to a component. So but one thing here is, let's make sure that the spacing here, instead of having a number for the spacing between them, let's use auto so that it's going to be responsive. So now it means I can come to my asset files. We've opened that earlier, drag this and then drop this here. So we can come to somewhere here and let's try to adjust this here. So for this, you see it's not visible, so we can add a stroke to this. So double click to select this and let's add a stroke to this. So I'm going to add the plus sign for the stroke. So let's change our stroke color. I'm going to select this and then use the border color. And we have this. So let's go back to our design. We have this border around this here. So the next thing is to create this other section which says your balance. So for that, I'm going to use this other section so that we can see whatever we are having here. So press T on your keyboard for text and we are going to add your balance here like this. So the next thing is to change the font size of this. I'm going to use 12 and this is going to be light. And the color we are using here is going to be gray. So I'm going to change that and we can use this our gray here. So now that we have this, we need to add the balance here. So I'm going to select outside here, press T and add a $sign. So 1,200.00. So the size of this, I'm going to resize this to 24. Then we are going to use a semi-bold for this, for the price. So once we have this now, we need to add an icon here because there is an icon here. So let's go to the assets files. If you're not here already, make sure you're selecting our local assets. So let's drag this icon and drop this here. So once we have this, we need to just adjust the size of the icon. So here, lock this and let's make this 24 by 24. So these two items 1 and 2, we are going to select them and then press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Make sure that this is aligned to center. So for the eye icon here, let's make sure we're changing the color here to our black color. Then for this, we're going to do the same thing. Select this and make sure the color is black. So now that we have these two items, it's already looking like this. So we just need to group them. So group 1, let's just check the spacing between these two items. I'm just going to adjust this here. Let's set that to 4. So now here, select this and this, Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So let's make sure the spacing between them here, it's 4. Now that we have this, we want to prototype this so that when the user click this, it's going to hide the balance, and when they click back, it's going to show the balance. So to achieve this, I'm just going to rename this component or this section to balance. Then we can convert this to a component. So I can scroll up and click this icon here to convert this to a component. Now that we have this, we can add one variant to this. So to do that, while selecting this, click on the plus sign here to add a variant. So once this is added, we can now just do some little edits here. So we might have to change the alignment of this text. So let's double click here and change this to star, 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 and star. That's 5. So now we can change the alignment like I mentioned earlier. So this is going to be set to left. So we can do the same for this just to maintain the same design. So now that we have this, we can as well change the icon here. To do that, we have this our assets open. I'm just going to drag this image and then drop it here. So now we can take away this image. So now that we have our design, we can now prototype this quickly. So here I'm going to click the prototype section here, and then let's double click till you're selecting this eye. So once the user click on this eye, we want to switch to this here, and it should be instant. We're going to do the same thing here. Once the user click on this eye, we want to go back to this to return the favor. So this is going to be instant. So we are done with this component. So we can come in here and try to drag the balance here and drop this here. So I'm going to select design so that I can adjust this properly. So now we can switch to prototype here. By default, I have some prototype settings here. Yours might be set to no device, but you have to select this and use the iPhone 15 Pro that we're using for this design. So now press Shift and then the space bar so that we can have this displayed here so that we can actually test the prototyping we just did. Now I'm going to click on this here. You see our balance can be visible and then hidden at the same time here. So there are some movements. If you add more spacing between those items, it's just not going to move. So but for now, let's move to this other section of this. So I'm going to drag this here a bit. Then we have these items here. So to create this, I'm going to use a frame again. So I can click outside here and then press F on my keyboard, hold Shift to create a frame. So I'm going to click on the design here because it's on the prototype section. So now we want to change this to 52 by 52. Once we have this, we want to change the border radius here. So I'm going to use 26 for this. If you're using more than 52, you have to increase this because that's half of 52. Now that we have this, we need to add a background color to this. So I'm going to select this and I will use the primary soft for this. Then we need to add the text top up. So I'm going to press letter T on my keyboard and then add top up minus up. Now I will drag this and let's set the font size here for this to medium. So this is going to be medium, 12 is okay, and we can change the color of this here to dark here. So that's looking great. So now that we have this, we need an icon inside this here because there is a star here which is representing an icon. So let's pick any of this. So top up, this is going to match our top up here. For this, that's add money. So now let's change the selection color of this. So I'm going to select this and then pick primary here. So now we can just align this to center. Since that is a frame, I can just do that easily. So I'm going to select this item, hold Shift and then select this other item. Now press Shift A to put them in an auto layout, and the spacing between them, I think we can set that to 0 since this is having a line height of 22 here already. So now we can convert this to a component. To do that, I'll just rename this to quick action. So now then let's convert this to a component. The first thing here, double click to select this text. Let's add a property to this component. On the typography, you will get this. Now click this and let's rename this to title. Then let's also add an icon property. So I'm going to double click to make sure I'm selecting this item here. Then let's scroll up here. Click on these three dots and let's create an instant swap property. So I'm going to click this and then this is going to be icon. So there is no need to select any icon because we've already selected this. So now we can just create property for this. So now if you select this quick action, you see it has two properties. So we can come back to this as design section here. I'm just going to drag the quick action and then drop it here. So I have quick action. So we also have exchange. So I'm going to Ctrl D to drag this. So now let's try to change this text here, but I feel we might have some problems that we can just quickly solve. So once we have this exchange here, this is the problem. So let's quickly solve that. So we can go back to the parent components here. I'm going to select this text here. So now instead of aligning this here to auto hide, I'm just going to set this also to an auto width here. So let's add the auto width to this. So here we have that. Let's come back in here. You notice the exchange has been aligned properly. So let's change the icon for this. While selecting this, you can select this icon here and we can have the exchange. So let's look for this here. So this exchange comes with an additional property here. So we just have to tweak that, double click, make sure you're selecting that dark, or you can just select this. And I think I'll just do this. And this is going to be easier. So let's select this here. I think we're using our primary for this. So now I'm going to select this and then Ctrl D to duplicate, drag this here. So from this thing we have send here. So we can change this to send. And we can look for the icon for send. So let me select this here. So once you have this, I think we can just select preferred, just go to local here, local components. And we can have our icons here. So I'm going to look for send here. So we have that send, Ctrl D again. I'll do the same thing. Let's look for more. So I'll do the same thing here. Preferred, recently used. I'll go to local, then icons. Then let's look for more. This here. So I'm going to change this to more. Yeah, that's more options. So we have this set up already. So hold shift and select these other items. Press shift A to put them in an auto layout. Drag this to the end here. So you can zoom in, make sure that this is also aligned to this ruler. So for this, the spacing between them, we're going to set that to auto. So once we are done with the first section of our app, we just need to do one last thing here. So now let's select the frame here. So once you do that, I'm going to just drag this around. Just make sure you're covering everything here. So once you do this, automatically all these items will now be inside this new frame that I've just created. So now click on files here. And then you see the new frame we just created. If you try to hide that frame, it's just going to hide everything here. So let's add a fill to this frame. So the frame here, it's having a white fill. So select the mobile screen and let's apply the BG, that's the background color, for the whole of this screen. So now we have this here. So let's align this properly. I'm just going to push this somewhere here, the top, and we can use this here. And let's adjust this, then use the auto layout to just try to space these items. So I'll press shift A and let's reduce the space in between them here. So 20 looks okay. And if you want to just get more, accuracy, you can select this, hold shift and the space bar just to get this here. So once we push this here, we can try to select this and here. Let's just make this 296. Yeah, if this is 296, yeah, this is fine. So we have the first section of our application. So we need to add this other section. So we can close this and let's create this other section. So I'm going to scroll this here. Let's add a frame here. I'm not going to use auto layout for that, so I'm adding a frame. So for this frame here, I'm going to make this 74 here by 30. So once we set this, let's set the corner radius here to 15, and this by default, yeah, we are going to have white and then a black. We're going to have white and then our primary color. So now let's add a text inside this. I'll press letter T. This is going to be activity. So now the size of this is going to be 10 and the medium. So here we're going to resize this to 10 and the medium is fine. So let's align this to the center. So now this looks great. So double click here. I'll just name this to toggle button. That's the name. So we can create a component from this. So before we continue, let's change the color here to defined black here. So now convert this to a component. Click this and let's quickly add a variant for this. So this second variant is going to be the active state of this. So for the active state, we want to change the fill here to our primary color, and the text here, which is the black. I'm just going to detach that here and change that to white here. So we have our toggle buttons here. So now I'm going to do this. Let's go back to our assets. We should have our toggle buttons. So I have the first one here, and then if I do Ctrl D, I can have the second one here. But let's come in here and double click to select this. Let's select matching layers here and add a property to this. So scroll down under the typography. Let's click on this icon here to just say this is title. So now that we have this, I can just select this here. This is activity. Let's select this. This is going to be history. So I can just change it directly here. History. And then we can select activity and say, okay, this is our active state for this. So these two items, we have them here, but I'll hold this and then shift A to put them in an auto layout. And let's make sure the spacing between them, 12 is fine. Then I think we have an icon here. So let's just quickly bring this into this design here. So now that we have this inside this design, I'm going to add this drop down here. So to do that, I'm going to use this section here, and let's try and look for this drop down here. So I'll drag this and drop this here. So this time I'm going to lock this and resize this to 24 so that the user can easily just tap on that. So for the selection color, let's change that to the primary color. Now item 1, and you know this, we have grouped them using auto layout. I'm going to select this, press Shift A. Now they are together. Make sure that this is at the center of those two items, and let's adjust this properly. Now I can come back in here and adjust this. Now that we have this, I think we have this other section here. So but this item here and then this other item is one component. So let's quickly create this other item so we can then group them together. So I'm going to use a frame here, just drag this here anyways. So just drag this here. Let's see, I'll just drag this here just to give us an idea. So we can add a fill to this. This is going to be white, and let's play with the corner radius here. I'll set that to 8. So yeah, so these two items is just one component. So but before we continue, let's create the content of this. So here I'm going to add another frame here. So I'll hold shift and then drag this. So the size of the frame is going to be 40 by 40. So inside this, we are going to add a stroke. So for the stroke size, I'm going to set that to 3. And we can change the color to our border color. So this time the corner radius here is going to be 20, and we have our cycle. So for this here, I think since this is, we're going to have another content here, let's just change the width of this. Let's add 4 here. So let's make this 40 by 40. That means here I have to add 2 here again for this. so we can maintain desired shape. But if you add more corner radius like 40 and then till this becomes 80 by 80, oh sorry, till this becomes 90 by 90 before you can adjust this again. So now that we have this, we need to add the logos of the banks that we are doing transactions with. So now let's go back to our images here. We have some logos. So I'm going to select all these logos here, and let's quickly click on files here. Let's try to rename these items here. So right click and rename. So here I'm just going to say logo or logo. So I can use $N. So this is, see, we have logo 1 to 5. If you use the capital letter, it starts 5 to 1. So let's use logo N, $. Make sure you're adding that. So rename. So we have our logos. So the next thing is to click on this 3 dots here. Let's try to create multiple components. So once we have that, all our logos are now available for use. So I can come in here and select assets. So now you see we have all our logos here. So I'm just going to drag this and drop it in here. So we can center this here and here. So we have this Wemmer. So since this is inside, if you turn this to show content, you're going to get this. But here we are clipping our items here regardless. So it should just be within this frame. So now that we have this, let's just quickly add another frame here. So this, I'm going to set that to 20 by 20 here. So let's convert this corner radius here to 10 here. So this will do. And we can give this as well a stroke. So let's add a stroke to this here. And we can change this here to maybe white or the normal border color. So let me just use the BG color for this. So inside this, I want to add an icon here. So let's scroll down. I'm looking for an arrow. So this here. So drag this and drop this inside here. So for this, we want to resize this to 10 here. So if this is outgoing, then we are going to make sure that the color here is red. So you can use your arrow key to push this here somewhere around this corner here so that it's not affecting this, to indicate the type of transaction that we are carrying out. So this looks like it's too big, but we can adjust this. So let's adjust this size here. Instead of this, we can make that 16 here. And then for this item, let's just try to center that, since that's the parent, and this looks better. So for this, since it's as an outgoing transaction, we just have to find a way to pick our red color here, since we don't have any defined in the project. So I'm using FF5151 for this. So that's our outgoing transaction. So these two items now, you can only select them like this, try to align them and frame them together. Do not use auto layout, so frame them together. So once we have this section completed, and let's add the money cents and then the name of the user. So I'll press T in the money cents here. So we can Control D to duplicate this, the name of the user. I'll just use undo here, Steven. So now that we have this, let's quickly just adjust this size here. So this is going to be 12 and semi-bold, and then this is going to be 10 and light, or we can use regular, since we are going to change the color. So this is going to be, let's select this here, this is going to be our gray color. So this is going to be dark color, so our black color here. So one thing I want us to also adjust here is the line height for this. So we're going to set this to auto and set this again as well to auto. So hold shift and select this other item, shift A to put them in an auto layout. So we have these two items here. So now we can control the spacing between them. So if I set that to 2, that is fine. So but I can still select this guy here, this item, and make sure that the alignment is to the left. And the same thing, okay, this is already set to the left here. So we have this section. So here we need to put the amount and then the time. So I'll select these two items. Let's just highlight them like this and then drop them somewhere underneath here so that we can see properly. Let me drag everything. So I'm going to zoom in so we have the time. So to do that, I'll just duplicate this. Once we have this, I'm just going to change this to 20. Okay, let me add the dollar sign here, 0.00, and this should be our time. So here 80, okay, 8:03 a.m. So we have this, but this item here looks too big, so we can just make sure that everything here hugs each other. So content, I'll set that to hug. The same thing for this, you can set that to hug here, hug the content. The same thing for this here, I'll just set that to hug. And then the alignment, I think we're good. So we have this section already. So now here, I think before we move back to this section, I want to make sure that you select this auto layout here and make sure that this time starts somewhere from the right hand side here. Now for this Steven here, regardless of what the user is typing, we want to make sure that it's in uppercase. So scroll down to where you are having typography while selecting Steven. Click on this icon here and let's use the uppercase letters for this. And for the fill, okay, that is good. And then here again, I think we can make sure we're selecting everything is hugging to content here. So let's start by grouping this item 1 and then 2 here. So press Shift A to group these two items here. So I think I noticed there is some movement here. So if I select this, instead of having a fixed weight here, we can just select this and then say hug content. So it's just going to extend to that. Now that we have these items selected to auto layout, make sure that they are aligned to the center. And then the next one is to group this other item together. So now let's check the spacing. It's 8 and it's good for us here. So now I'm going to select this other item by holding Shift, then press Shift A to put them also in an auto layout. Now we can just quickly double click here and change this to transaction. That's the name of this. Press enter. So we can convert this to a component here, and let's add some properties to this. So for this here, this is going to be, scroll down to where we have typography. I'm going to use this icon here. This is going to be the type, that's the transaction type. Then for this here, I'll scroll down to the same position, click on this icon, then this time create a property. This is going to be the name of the sender. Then the same with this is going to be amount. So the same procedure, click on this icon, then create prototype. This is going to be amount. Then the last one here, it's going to be time. So I'm going to select this and then create property, and this is going to be time. So good. Now that we have all of this set, we can create a variant for this. This is for money sent out. Then let's create a variant for this. I'll have to scroll up. There is a plus sign here, and we can have our variant here. So all we need to do is to make sure we're selecting this icon here. Let me make sure I'm selecting this, and let's just change the direction that this is looking. So we are going 180 here, and let's see, that's supposed to be 180. So we have this 180 is facing the opposite direction. So I'm just going to pick out a green color for this. I'll select green here, and let's try to just pick out something good. So I'm using 00BB1F for that. So this is for the transaction, that's for the incoming transaction. So now we have all the properties we need. So let's quickly do something. I'm going to select this item and then this as well. Let's add a stroke to this. So this is going to be only at the bottom here. And then to align that, so here I'll just check the margin or the space at the top and bottom. I'm just going to make that 8 so we can have this. So for this color, I'm just going to pick my own color for this here, since I don't think we have a suitable color for that. So I'll just drag that to somewhere here for now. So I can select transaction and then increase the size of this so we can see this. So now when we come back to our design here, we want to go back to assets and try to drag one of these items here. That's the transaction. I'll drag this and drop this here. So now let's quickly increase this. So I'll drag this. Well, I think we forgot to add one property here, which is the image, so that we can easily change them. So now I need to select these two items here again by holding shift. Sorry, I have to zoom in so that I don't create a variant that I don't need. So hold shift and select this other item here, and for the spacing between them, we're going to change that to auto. So now that should fix our problem here. So auto, and then we need to also do one thing here. So I'll double click for this item, double click here. Let's go to files to make sure that I'm selecting the image variant. So we have logo 1 here. So now I'm going to use the matching layers here. Once that has been selected, I'm going to click the 4 dots here and then create an instance swap. This is going to be logo. We already selected a default one for that, so I'll click on create, so we can now easily change the logos from here. So for every transaction, we have a date for that. So I'll press letter T here and then add June 2024. So let's use just 3 letters, so it's June 24. And we can use our dark color here. So I'll click this, set that to our dark color, and everything listed out here will be transaction for June. So I'm going to Ctrl D here to duplicate this, drag this underneath. So we have 2 types of transaction here. So I'm going to set that to the second type of transaction, which is the variant 2, and you see we have the logo changed. And instead of money sent, I will just change the title here to money received here. So I think I received, yeah, deliberately I actually typed this here. That's the money received. So I think somehow it's like this is maintaining a previous design. Here you see I typed this with a lowercase, but then it's setting here to uppercase. So now I think this is probably available from the recent design. So I'm going to double click here to just actually show you. Once you select this, you can use matching layers, so it's applied to the other one. So for the settings here, you see the text case in here has been set to title case. So make sure that this is set to title case, so that whatever you type in there, just make sure that every word is capitalized like it is here. So now that we have these items, I think with this, I still need to make this a little bit faint. That is the border underneath there. So now I'm going to select this item 1 and hold shift to select item 2, and we can go for the border here. That's the stroke. So this time I'm just going to select this, and let's try to adjust the color here since it's already on the white background. So I think I'll just leave that somewhere here. But if you want that thicker, I think I prefer this a little bit faint, but this is too faint. But we're running out of time. So I'm going to select this item again. That's this one. And let's change the logo here. I'll select this. I'll use the second logo. Ctrl D to duplicate this. Drag this down here. And I can change the logo quickly again. Select this. Let's just use this here. Let's say local components, and I have to go to this logos again, and I'll select this other logo. So I'll hold shift and select item 1, 2 and 3 here. Press shift A to put them in an auto layout, and let's work with the spacing between these items here. So I'll just set that to 4. That's for the spacing. So I have room for one more, so I'll select this, Ctrl D, and I can just select this and try to change the logo here, and I'm just going to use logo 1. So now we can select this section here, that's for this item, and then Ctrl D, then try to push this here. So let's say this is for the previous date. This is a frame, so it's just going to take everything inside since we're using clip to content. If you are not sure what you're using, just select this here. You're going to see here show content. So here if I clip this item to content here, it's all hidden here. So I'm going to use the clip to content here. So for this, if that was 24, this is going to be 23 here. I'll just change this here. And mind you, you can always use, let's say if I'm anywhere and I want to select this 23, you can hold Command and Shift or Control and Shift. I'm just used to pressing or clicking the mouse multiple times. So for these two items, I'm just going to take them outside this. So I'll hold Shift and select these two items, just drag them outside here. So now what we want to do here is, if the user click on this toggle button here, we want to be able to hide this and then show this the same time. But for the content of this, I'll select this first one, that's the inner content, these two items here. I just want to give like a margin for this, so I'll do the same for the other side. So I adjust this, and I will also do the same thing for this other side here like this, so that it looks good. So we can just make sure that they are aligned to center. I'll just use this here, they are aligned to center. So I think this looks better. So here what we need to do is to select this item and this other item here. So press Shift A to put them in an auto layout, so it's now one item. The next thing we want to do is to now convert this to a component. So for this, I'm just going to name that activity and history. So we can now convert this to a component. Once this has been converted to a component successfully, we need to create a variant for this. I'll press this and we have this. So now we want, when the user closes this, let's just hide this item here. So double click to select this particular item. And once we have this, let's rotate this here so that it's facing up. So I'm going to set that to 180 degrees. So for this item here, I just want to drag them like this to hide them. So once it gets to this, just for some reasons, since we're using Smart Animate, I just want to hide this after reducing this here like this. Then we can prototype this quickly. So go to prototype. We are interested in this button here. So I'm just going to keep double clicking till I select this. So drag this here. When the user click on this, we want the user to come to this here. So this is going to be Smart Animate. If yours is instant, please set that to Smart Animate, and we're sticking to linear. So now I'm going to select this other icon here again, double click here. So once I have this, I'm just going to point to this again. Once the user tap on this, let's just go back to this here. So now, since we have this big component here, activity and history, we can just come back to assets here and then drag activity and history inside this section here. So now I'm just going to drop that, go back to design, just try to center this here. So I can push this here to the top to just make this look a little bit aligned before we come back and check it. So click on this, hold Shift and then the space bar. So let's try to toggle this and see. Okay, we have this. We can now toggle this on and off here. So now that we have this, what we need to do is to create this other history section. So where the user can click on this and then they can just toggle between these two items here. So to do that, I'm not creating any other section again. So I'm going to select this item here and then click the plus sign here to add a variant. So if you zoom in, you just click this plus sign. So now that we have this, we're going to increase the size of this component so that we can have other things there. So now I can click this. Let me click this and try to open this here. Let me click on this inner one here. Just drag that so that we can see everything here. So we're going to delete them. So we can just quickly prototype this. So what I need here, I need to delete this image. That's for this. We don't need that. Every other item here, I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to double click here. Make sure I'm selecting these items. So I'll hold Shift and hold Shift here. The same thing with this. I'm just going to select this and then delete this. So we're left with this here. So instead of money sent here, for this, I'm just still using this component. Instead of money sent, let's change this to, let's say, credit here. then the name of the person, and then the amount. So I'll press Ctrl D here. We can have this. So instead of credit here, this is going to be debit here, and I'll just do this, and then do this. Then somehow I'll just change this to credit here, credit. So now that we have this section, that's for this month, this day, June 24. Ctrl D here, and I'll just drag this here, so we can change that to June 23rd. So here, this is going to be June 23rd here. So you can even come in here, select this one, and try to hide the border here at the ending. So for this last item, I'll just hide the border, and I can push this back here. Okay, so now that we have this is good. So we need to create another scenario for this, but before we do that, let's make sure that this here, that's the button here, that's the history, is the active one, active, and then activity is the default here. So to continue, make sure you click on prototype. We want to disconnect this new prototype that we're having here. So you see it's connected to this previous one, so make sure you select this and then delete it, so it's not connected to this other one again. So now we're going to select this item here, so you can click on the plus sign to create another variant at the bottom. So let's click back on design, and for this I'll just double click, make sure I'm selecting this, and let's drag this here till we get to the last one here, and we can just hide this, something like this. You can just hide that directly, but I prefer doing this for the smart animate. Now that we have this, we can now do the same prototyping. So let's change this arrow, it's going to face up 180, and we can just do the quick prototype here. So I'm going to zoom in. If the user is clicking on this, let's go to prototype. We can just drag this here and then point to this other history here. So the same thing for this. If the user is clicking this, let's go back to this here. That's basically on top. Everything here is smart animate. We're maintaining the same settings for this. So but we need to be able to access this section here. You see now it's not accessible here. So to do that, I'm just going to show you a quick trick on how we can actually achieve that. So I'm going to zoom in, select activity here, so go to design. Now use the matching layer selection. It's going to select all the activity button on this screen here. So once the user click on the activity button, we want the user to come to this particular component, so click on prototype. So now I can select this item here, drag this, and point to this item here. So once you're pointing to this, you can just release the mouse. We have mixed actions, yes, click, and then we can have this. So the same thing, I'm going to double click to select history here, go back to design, and let's select matching layers. So when the user click on history, you see all the history will be selected, but this time we just want to, let's use this one that is close here. We just want to go back to prototype, and let's drag this and point to the visible one here, which is this here. So now that we have this, it's going to be on top, and every other thing is pointing to this. So if I close this with just the two prototype we did, you see we have multiple lines here. Okay, so now if you click this, you know, we have this smooth animation, and if you click this here, this is going to close. If we toggle this, you see we have our toggle bar, everything is moving well. If I do this and I close this, I come back here, you see everything looks nice here. So for this, I think we've made some adjustments, so automatically this is going to allow us to scroll inside. But if you can't scroll within your item here, you just need to select this and just drag this. That's if you don't have an overflow, you can just do this a little here. So once you have that overflow, let's just select this here properly, and once you just do this, make sure you're covering at least one item here. So go back to your prototype, Then here we can just set that to vertical scrolling here. So now I have to just push this a little here. Once I do that, you notice that this now will allow me to scroll between my items here again. So if I do this, you see we can scroll here within the content. So now that we can scroll between these items here, to actually achieve that here with the history, if I come in here, you see we don't have this. I'll make sure I'm selecting this design here. I'll select these 2 items here and press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. And let's just try to adjust that a little. And here, and I can select this now, double click on this, go to prototype here, and I'll just set that to vertical scrolling here. So let's just try and see if we can move. Good. Now we can move the content of this item here the same way we are doing this. So to conclude this application, we can now add a navigation button here. So now I'm going to close this and then add the frame for that here. So once we've done this, I'll go back to design. I'll just make sure that the height of this is like 62 here, and let me align this here and then make sure that it's aligned to the bottom here. So let's close this. It's going to cover everywhere here and here. So I think I'll go for 68 here. So that means I'm still going to use this here. So let's add a field for this item, and we can now create the nav bar. So to do that, I'll go back to my assets, click on local components, then we can search for icons. So I'll drag this home icon here and drop it. So I'll press letter T on my keyboard. This is going to be home, and I'm going to make sure that this is 12, and then I'm going to set this to medium here. So once we have these 2 items, I'm just going to select them and make sure we're using selection color. Don't use the fill. Selection color, let's change that to primary. Press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Rename this to menu item. Now we can convert this to a component by clicking on this icon, and we can now add some property. So double click on this, and this scroll down to where we have this in under the typography. This is going to be our title. Now for the icon, select this, scroll up where you have this 3 dots, click on this, and we can create an instance swap. So this is going to be icon. Now we can create a variant for this. So the first one is the active state. This is going to be the default state. So we can now scroll down here where we have primary. I'm just going to change that to dark. So this is our default state. Here we can just drag one of this menu item and then drop this here. So this is home and it's active. Control D, I'll just drag this here. So this is going to be, let's say, cards. So here where we have this, I'll just change that to cards. I'll Control D here and I'll change this to wallets here. So let's fix this here. So I'm going to double click to select this, use the matching layers, and we need to select this here. So we have our wallets here. So I'm going to Control D again, drag this. This is going to be accounts here. So I'll select this 3 items. So instead of default, we can just set that to variant 2, and we have this. So we can change their icons. So cards, I'm going to click on this icon here. Let me use this here, and then we wait for cards here. So I'm looking for anything that has to do with cards. So we have this. The same for wallet. I'm going to click this icon here, drop down and look for wallets. We have that. So for accounts, I'll do the same thing where we have accounts. I'll select this user here. This is coming with some problems, and this is not how we want this to appear. So let's try to fix this. I'm going back to the file here. So let's open this menu item that has this user, and I'm just going to open this again. I'll keep opening. So now I want to target this item here inside. So for this, I'm just going to remove the field. So now that we have the field removed, I'm just going to set the color for this stroke to our dark here. I believe that's the color we are using. Yes, that's the color. So I'm going to select this, scroll down again. Wherever we are having this black, that's somewhere here. I want to change it to dark here. So now I can do the same thing for this, where we have this 00, we change that to dark. The same thing for cards. Select this, where we have this, I'll change that to dark here. So we have our 4 menu items. Select them, Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Drag this and drop this here. So I'll drag this here to align to this point, and the spacing between them auto. So this time spacing on the left and right, I can just set that to 20. You can set that to 24 as well if you want more spacing. So here I can align that to the container here. So we have our item. So for this I can actually select this, and we can try to drag this, but this is a variant, so I can't do much. I have to make all the changes I want to do in here. So let's see if I can just get this to open somewhere here, so that it's going to just drop down here. So for this you can just add a stroke here, or you can use shadow, but I'll prefer using a stroke. I'll just set that at the top here. Then for this I can just set that somewhere close to white, but not white. If you can use FA, but anything, it's great at this point. So let's see, I think I can do better. Let's just make that completely white. So now we have our menu items set here. So let's see, what else do we want to do? So I'm going to select this, press Shift and then the space bar here. So we can try to align these items properly, and then we can now work on the bonus pages. So I'm going to close this, and for this item here and this item, regardless of what we do, the spacing between them is just going to be the same here. So I'm just going to adjust this here, and I'll set that to 20. But if I want to get the best of this, let's see, the spacing, we're using 14 between this item and this item. So I'm just going to do this, and the spacing between them, let's set that to 14 here. So it's going to look better when I open this on the prototype here. So everything looks well aligned. So we can drag this big components and then drop it somewhere here. And for this, let's just add a new screen for that. So I'm going to be using iPhone 14 and 15 Pro. That's the same screen we've been using. So select this here, and let's use the primary color as our background. Now I'm going to select the shape tool here. I'll be using polygon, which is the triangle, though we can add other shapes to this. So now once I have this here, 50 by 50, fine by me. So Ctrl D to duplicate this. I'll just rotate this to 180 here, and we can drag this somewhere close together here. So hold Shift and select the other item, and let's add a corner radius of 4 to this. You can add more, and I feel I just have to reduce this to somewhere like 4 to 6 here. So I don't know, I think I like this, how they are symmetrically aligned. So let's search for a thunderbolt using Iconify. So you can type Iconify here and click on this, and let's wait for this to pop up. So I'll just search for thunder here. Okay, that's the wrong spelling here. I'll pick this thunderbolt. So close this. This is too big for my screen, so I can lock this, and let's resize this to 40. So we can drag this here, and I'm going to try to rotate this item like this. And the more, if you spend time on this, you're just going to get a better result. But we're running out of time, so I'm going to select this and then drag this here. Sorry, I'll just change that to a primary color here. So let's just do that here. So now I can select these 2 items. Let's just try to do this here, something like this, and we can have this. So all of this, or these 3 items, I'll just select them and frame these items here. So once these items are framed, I'll make sure this gray color that's for this is changed to white. So here we can just bring that somewhere here, the center, and we can add a text here that's quick cache. Yeah, that's the spelling we're using for this. So I'll set this to 18, and medium looks great. So let's add the animation. So before we do that, let's just align this to the center and make sure that this is also at the center. I think I'm redoing that. So select this here, Ctrl D to duplicate. So on this section here, we want to do something. So double click to select each of this item except the thunderbolt. So I'm selecting the first triangle. So hold shift so that you can move this quickly just somewhere outside of the screen, and I'm going to select the second polygon here, hold shift, and then push this outside here. Then for this quick cache here, I'll just push this down, not too down here, then we can hide this here. So in this section here, we're just going to leave everything, and I can even add a text here. Let's say powered by, I'm using capital letter, powered by iCode NG, something like this here. So I'll center this here. So for this, I'm just going to change the font weight to 14, and let's align this to center here. I'm going to press Ctrl C, hold shift, and then push this down here. And I'm just going to, after copying that, I'll paste that here, somewhere here. And let's bring this our design, I'll hold shift and then press this. So let's quickly prototype this. So select the prototype here. Then for this, I'm going to drag this and point to this. So this is not going to be on top, this is going to be after a delay. So I'm using the default settings here, and the animation here, I'll set that to smart animate. And instead of ease in, I will set that to gentle, because I want them to touch each other. That's the two triangles to just touch each other. So that's good. I think that's good. So I can select this here, and let's see, or let's click on the play sign here. Okay, good. So but that's like a movement there that you know, I don't like. Okay, that's from this. Let's see again. Okay, that's manageable for now. Let's see if we can align this to center here. Okay, we can just manage this here. Then the next thing, after this has been displayed, we want to move this back to the home screen. That's this other screen. So we can go back to prototype, and this arrow, I'll point that to this screen here. So this is going to be after delay as well. Then the delay here, it's not going to be gentle, it should be linear. And this shouldn't be smart animate, it should be slide in. And let's try that again this time. So I'll click this, and we have this. Okay, so this is our design. If you're new to my channel and you want to see more tutorial contents like this, please kindly hit the subscribe button. Thank you.